French nails, also known as pink and whites, are so beautiful, but they're, in my opinion, the hardest nail to do. I'm going to try to make that easier for you with my new collection. I love doing French. I've done it for the better part of my career. But some very smart nail technician, I wish I knew who it was, created the reverse French. Let's do that today. Let's get started. So nails in general, acrylic, in my opinion, are the hardest to do. But I'm trying to make this as easy as possible to break it down so you can create these nails at home. And one of the things I've done is I have a no odor collection with signature monomer, 4 colors, pink and white, and a foundation pink, and I'll explain that, and a clear cap. So with that, I have a worksheet. You can download it from nailcareer.com. And on that, I have several shapes and pictures. And today we're going to do the reverse French. This was a brilliant move. I did the traditional French for years, mastered it. The reverse French is very, very smart. So let's start with a non-smelly product. And I made this so that you can work at home. And I'm doing this in stages. This collection did not come with a primer or forms, so you can focus on the worksheet and learn how to make those proper liquid to powder ratio beads before we start working on people, probably yourself in this case. So one thing I do when I tell you about the monomer, you need very, very little. This low odor monomer is slow setting. That's what we need to give you time to create those beads. Because one thing about acrylic, it dries fast, especially if you have a fast setting monomer. Those are great once you get going. But you want to slow set so you have time to create. So you just need a very little bit because it doesn't have a lot of evaporation. So tiny, tiny bit. When I say little, I mean little, okay? Let's say we're just doing 1 or 2 nails. See that? I'm gonna pull it to one side. You see how much is in there? Very little. It's probably just a capful, if that. And I'll mention this before I forget. Don't pour the excess you have left over back into the bottle. Sometimes there's little traces of powder in what you're using, in the dish that you're using. Especially when you're learning, there might be lots of traces of powder. And when you put it back in, it activates the whole bottle, and you don't want that. It can turn it yellow, and you don't want that. Let me just set this up right here so when I dip, you can see exactly what I'm doing, okay? I'm gonna get my glasses. I'm gonna get my brush nice and saturated, but I'm also gonna grab a paper towel here. These are really absorbent. They're auto, you buy them in the auto section at a hardware store kind of thing. I like this color because I'll be able to show you how much liquid I may be releasing because if it's on a white paper towel, you really can't see it. And that is a big part of the learning curve of this as well. So I'm getting my brush nice and saturated with the monomer. And I should tell you, I'm going to show you how to do it on a person too. I left one finger. I've done all these and I just left one finger so we can do it together because the dimensions are quite different. This paper you can laminate it if you're able to do that after you print it, or you can stick it in like a photo album sheet or put a piece of plastic over top of it. So you can just really pop it off and do it again. Or you can print more of these off. When you're working with a low odor, you want a drier bead. And this is what it's all about, is creating those beads. That's why I developed this, so you can create tons and tons of beads before you take it to a finger. Now, the idea with a reverse French, which is brilliant, in the old days, we did the white first, then we filled it in with the pink. Now you do the pink first, being reverse, you do the pink first, and then you do the white. And the reason why it's so much easier is because once you do the pink, if you sharpen up that line, you can just throw the white on. White is a little bit harder to work with. It's a little bit more like solid in pigment. So it has to be, to create that line, you have to make it nice and more dry. It's a little bit different. We'll do that together. So get your brush, a little bead, just a little bit. You can see how much I'm on the side there, and I'm soaking the brush, and then I'm really taking out quite a bit. Then I'm going to rest it in the pink powder, sort of on the side of the tip. Leave it in for about 3 to 5 seconds. You know, depending on where you live, will be different humidities and heat temperatures. So it can affect the powder, but it's marginal. It's not a huge amount. So I have a nice little bead, and I'm going to place that bead right about there. And I'm going to dab off and clean my brush right away. So about that bead, you see how it's sort of sitting there? It's loosening a little bit, and that's what you want because you want it to be able to move around. But I'm going to use the height of this bead in here to create that ledge before we start the white part. And you can see it sitting there quite nicely. If it settles for you in the perfect spot and you get the right size of bead, which is going to take time, it takes quite some time to figure out the size of bead that you need, then you can start manipulating it. And you want to push it to the back just a little bit. Move this a tiny little bit. So you can feather it back like this. But don't think of doing it all in one bead. You can just take your time and just do the front part of the nail. Then you can add another bead and do the back part. So right now it's flowing in here. If it was flowing over the white or where I want the white to be, I would just take my brush and just trim it up like that a little bit. Right? That's all you have to do. Now the beauty of it, when it hardens, when it cures, when it completely dries, you can file it. But you might get so good at it that you don't even need to do that anymore. You just make that French part so good, you don't need to do that. So it's basically just shaping it up. It actually fell into that quite nicely. And you're just sort of sliding it to the back. Now, if you want to push it down on the back, you could, but don't push it down near this part where the French is going to be because you want that high. That's the trick when you're doing it on a nail. You just want to feather it back a little bit. See that? Now the beauty of the slow set is you can take time to do that, because if you're first learning, you're trying to figure out the right consistency for the bead that you can manipulate it. You want to take control of that bead and push it where you want. If it's running everywhere, don't panic, it's okay. You just have a little bit too much liquid. If it's falling off when you place it on, it's okay. It just means it's a little bit dry. This is the learning curve that it takes, and every product works a little bit differently. There you go. So you can see, I use this color specifically so you can see it on this sheet. I'll show what a runnier bead might look like. So I'm going in here to get my monomer. And we can do this on the paper rather than on your nail because it's just easier to be making mistakes on a piece of paper. I'm going to grab a bead of acrylic powder. And I'm going to place that on there. And sometimes it won't come completely off. And see how fast it's spreading? That's a bit of a runnier bead. And here would be even a runnier bead. See that? And the paper is absorbing some of it too, but the natural nail wouldn't as much. And then if it's a drier bead, it can be like that, and see how it's really not having any movement at all. You just want it to loosen a little so you can manipulate it the way you want, okay? Okay, so let's take one tiny little bead near the cuticle. Now a cuticle bead can be a little bit looser because you want it to sort of soften a little bit. You don't need it to have an edge so much, like a thicker edge. You just need it to sort of melt into the cuticle. So it has a nice, smooth cuticle area. So I'm going to put that guy right there. And then I'm going to sort of coax it with the edge of the brush, the belly of the brush. One thing that's a bad habit is getting more liquid to try to move it around. That's adding more liquid, and you don't want to do that because that can lead to allergies. Try not to get too much into the habit of doing that. Okay, now we want to do the white. We want the white a little bit drier because we want to, That's the traditional way. But this way, it's very different. I'm going to show you on my finger. We're going to sharpen it up. But you can literally throw the white on any which way you want, and it will file off. And I will show you that. But the white, you want it just a tad bit drier, and you'll get used to those beads as you start doing it. This is all about liquid to powder ratio. It's really, really important when you're trying to learn how to make those beads. Now this one, if you assume that the pink is dry, you can literally smash this on top of the whole thing. It looks horrendous, but that's okay. It can be horrendous. You can practice that liquid to powder and maybe doing some shaping, which just saves you a lot of filing. The better you get at your liquid to powder and your application and where you place it, and a slow set allows you the time to learn that placement, the less filing you'll be able to do. Okay, so let's do my nail. Okay, so what we want to do, we're doing the same thing we just did on a real nail as we did on the paper. This is when you're ready for this kind of thing, right? You want to really practice those ratios first. I'm going to use the foundation pink like I did on there. These are the ones here. I used my Suzie's pink tint. But this one I'm using the foundation so you can see the difference in the color. And so it's easier to see on camera. A little harder to see. See how high that is? See if I hold my finger up? And I need to make the points on the side, the little space open for that, so I can drag up. The white will settle in there, right? Creating that nice French point. That's the hardest point for me because for years I did it the other way around. This is the easier way to do it, but for me it's a little harder because I practice so hard the other way. So here's the time where I need to create and shape where the product is going to be. This is the advantage of the slow set monomer. It gives you the time to push the bead around and shape it before it cures. With the fast setting monomers, the most common ones out there, those don't give you a lot of time. You really got it. That's what makes it so hard to learn. That's why this is an advantage. If you're doing this for the first time, you know, you're not alone in how difficult it is. Remember Jenna Marbles tried it. You might want to check that out. I don't know, cameraman, can you put a link somewhere so they can check it out? It's a great watch, you guys. It's so much fun to watch her do that. It's really cute too. She just really gives a good go at it. And you can see that it is quite hard. But once you get it, it's pretty magical. So you don't have to make this perfect because we can make it up in the filing once it cures, okay? So don't be hard on yourself if you don't get this. This takes a while. Remember, this is the hardest nail to make. Once you master this, you can do pretty much anything. That's why I wanted to get a set out to you that is slow setting that you can work with and develop those skills before you start doing your hands or anybody else's. So once you master that paper, then you can get a fake hand or a plastic finger. And then you learn that because doing a hand is quite different shape than a flat paper. But you can upgrade. And that way it'll make your learning curve so much easier. Okay, see what's happening there? I've got the cuticle. I'm shaping up the sides. Okay, so I'm looking at it this way, and it needs to be high. And the reason being is because when I slam the white in it any old way, when I start filing it all down, the pink has to be high so that we come down to the white, and then it's a sharp, crisp line. That is the beauty of this particular technique. So that's looking good, but it's still not quite high enough in here. That's basically where the apex is. That's going to be the highest point for the strength. because it's all about structure. Of course, it's beautiful and that's what we seek, but we must nail that structure. So I'm going to get another bead, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm holding it about 5 or 6 seconds in the powder, and it's just a smaller bead. It's a smaller bead, and I'm going to place it right on that apex because I want to make sure that height is happening right there. And you guys, you can do this in 50 beads. It doesn't matter. You can do it in 1, whatever is comfortable for you. If you want to work yourself up to just 1 bead, that's great. But it really doesn't matter. Just do what is comfortable for you and whatever, how long it takes. You just got to work at your own pace. You can leave that lumpy and bumpy too. You don't have to perfect it by any means because it's just going to be filed down to match the white. I would look at it sideways and see how high it is. And honestly, that's probably about where I want it to be when it's finished filing, depending on how long you go. That's the scary part if you don't make that pink high enough. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bit, just a tiny, I didn't even think I poured too much monomer actually. I'm going to hold a few seconds in there. And if you feel like it's even too wet and you're not sure, you can even just put it on your paper towels to drain a bit of it out. But I'm going to put another bead just to that high part to make sure that it's going to be high enough. Okay, so now we're going to wait till that cures, and then I'm going to file it to sharpen it to show you how it works with the white. So I'm just going to put my lids on the powders so I don't get any dust in there. And you just need a file. Doesn't really matter which grit, just anything. I'm picking a medium at this point. And you just want to be able to crisp up that edge once it cures. Now there's 2 ways this stuff cures. It cures not unlike gel. It has a dispersion layer that comes to the surface, which helps why it doesn't smell. And once that dries, you can remove it. It's a sticky layer you just remove like we do gel. Or this one, you don't do this with gel, but you can run it under warm water and it helps set it so you don't have that sticky layer on top, which is what I have done. I just ran to the sink and I ran it under warm water and it cured pretty quick. And there's no dispersion layer. So now all I'm doing is just crisping up my French line. So I'm imagining where that smile line would be, where the white would land would make that smile, right? So you want it to be nice and smooth, crisp, maybe super smiley or not so smiley. There's all sorts of different types of smile line shapes. So I'm just making sure it comes up to the side. And I'm just making sure it's nice and crisp. That's all. That's looking pretty good. And here's a little pro tip. You can take your little fine file and just smooth it up on the end to make sure it's super crisp. That's a little pro tip. Okay, now we're going to get a form and we're going to place it under and just smash that white on in any old which way if you're confident. And this is always the scary part, whether you're confident or not, and you'll get better at this. Again, I'm really good at the other way of placing the white down first and then the pink. So this way for me is easier. It still is a learning curve because it's a different technique. That's all. Okay, so I'm going to take the white. Now, in the old days, placing the white was crucial. But if you've got the pink right on, putting the white down doesn't matter, frankly, where you put it. Okay, so I'm just going to gather some white bead. And I'm going to place that guy. So I want to kind of like place it properly, but you don't have to. Just smash it in, just as long as it's in, just as long as it's there. Now you can see that I have control over this bead. I'm just sort of molding it and placing it wherever I want. If you find it's running everywhere, you just have a little too much liquid, and that's all right. You just know that you want to use a little bit less next time, or maybe a lot a bit less, just depending on how much you've used in the liquid. Whatever liquid you use too, if it has a UV inhibitor tint in it, like it's a blue tint, that is to help it non-yellow specifically in the sun. If you have too much monomer of the UV inhibitor in your brush, it'll turn it a bit gray. If you have too much monomer when you're using a low odor, it can turn it a tinge beige. So you want to make sure your liquid to powder, no matter what product you're using, the ratio is right on so you can get the true color of what it's meant to be. So you can see I just smashed it everywhere, right? Didn't matter. I just put it everywhere. I mean, I've seen them where they're all over and you can't even see any type of smile line whatsoever, but that's okay. In this particular method, it does not matter. Just going to get a little bit more. I'm just going to make it a tad bit longer. I don't want to be shy of the length. I think it is actually long enough, however. Okay. Okay, smash that guy on there. Okay, now we just wait till it cures. Okay, so I've run this under hot water, warm to hot water, and it's cured nice, and you can hear. When you can hear that, it's ready to go. So when I take my form off, I will pinch it and pull downward. My hands are dry. Too much washing hands. See that? That's a sure sign. Okay, now you need a good file. I'm going to get my coarse file. I do have these, and I've separated the kits, and you can buy them together as well. And I am going to file this guy. So you can see the difference between this one and this one. This is the before, and this is the finished, okay? So there's a fair bit of high. It's pretty high in there, but fair bit of filing to do to get rid of that apex so high. But we do want it that high because we're going to reveal how I hope, cross my fingers, because remember, I'm not that good at this one. I'm gonna hope that my French reveals nice and crispy. Well, I should tell you too, sometimes when it's curing, because of that dispersion layer can be a little off color. But once you file that top layer off, it reveals the true colors underneath. It's looking nice and crisp. Like I say, this is always the scary part, to see if you've actually done it right or not. Got lots of filing videos, so you can check any one of those out. Also too, I should mention to you, you can go to nailcrew.com and click videos and punch in any word that is relating to what you want to search through all the videos that I have, rather than going through each and every one, and just punch in filing or gel, and it'll bring up all the videos that I have pertaining to that particular topic you're looking for. And now I'm just starting to shape it into my favorite shape, or one of my favorite shapes. As you can see, there's lots of aspects to nails. It's the liquid to powder ratio. It's the placement of where you put it. It's the 3D factor of doing it on an actual hand. It's holding the hand and moving it in different positions. It's the filing and the shaping and the end result. And then it's the finishing. And if you're going to go further, it's the nail art. There's so many aspects to it and so many different products to get to where you want to go. And right now, this is why I've developed this, is so you can work at home with no smell, with something that sets slower, so you can develop those skills before you start working on people. Okay, I'm going to fine tune this shape. It's looking pretty good. They're kind of pointy, aren't they? I like them pointy. Okay, so I'm just going to finish buffing, put a top coat on, and I think it's time to check out the reveals of my pink and white reverse. Beautiful. So take your time with French, traditional or reverse. Find a product that you can work with and just take your time. It's all about product combined with good technique and time. That's all you need. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me. See you guys in the next video.